They just did a report last week showing that some 1,300 epidemiologists and other people in the health industry were supporting all of these protests from Black Lives Matter. But yet they were against the protests, for example, in Michigan and Ohio, of people protesting the lockdown. It's right there. So they turned the whole thing political, right in front of everybody's eyes that could read and think.
Hey friends, Sean from SGT Report here. Thank you so very much for tuning in. Just a couple of words real quickly. I want to remind everybody that this broadcast is up now on iTunes as a podcast, so you can always get it there. SGT Report is also on Library and on BitChute, which is becoming increasingly more important given YouTube's fascist tactics. And before we start with Gerald Celente, friends, just a quick word from this interview's sponsor, the Backup Solar Power Bank. Did you guys hear about the elderly couple from Palo Alto that went missing for about a week? Fortunately, searchers found them alive and took them to the hospital via chopper, and they're both doing great. But here's the thing. When you go out on a hike, it's incredibly important to bring the correct gear with you. And perhaps if that couple had the backup solar power bank, they could have charged their phones and called for help. The 2020 Backup Solar Power Bank is the most convenient way to charge your phone, tablet, or other electronic device on the go. The Backup Solar Power Bank is a portable charger that fits in your pocket. It's powered by solar panels, so you can charge anytime, anywhere. It also supports wireless charging, which means zero cables. It has an SOS strobe light feature that can be seen for miles. Helpful for choppers that might be looking for you. The 2020 Backup Solar Power Bank is the perfect travel companion for anyone who enjoys outdoors, goes on vacation, or just out and about and needs a way to charge their phone or tablet. The 2020 model is now in stock, and you can save 20% the whole month of July using my promo code SGT20. If you want your own backup solar power bank, go to backupsolarbank.com and get yours today. I'll leave a link below this interview. And welcome back, friends. Thank you so very much for clicking play. Hey guys, it's my great pleasure to have back on the show, it's been far, far too long, the one, the only, Gerald Celente. You guys know the website. It's trendsresearch.com, home of the Trends Journal, and the new one is out. It's called Politicians, COVID War, Poverty, and Crime. Gerald Celente, welcome back.
Thanks so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming on. Hey, I was just looking at Times Square today, the live camera feed. It looks like a ghost town. So how you doing? Are you surviving the de Blasio and Cuomo empire?
Well, barely. It's very sad. We're about 90 miles north in Kingston, New York. And this place was really hopping, and it's just dead. As you said, Times Square is a ghost town. Places boarded up all over. They're exiting the city big time. They're moving up here, a lot of people, moving out to the Hamptons, moving over to Connecticut. They're getting out of the city. They can't afford it. Violent crime is on the rise. The numbers are there. And it's something that we had forecast. When people lose everything and have nothing left to lose, they lose it. And they're losing it big time.
I've come up with a list of a little game today, you know, right or wrong, up or down, left or right. Are you ready?
Okay.
All right. COVID or vaccine, Gerald?
There's no way I would get one. What do you mean? How should I answer these?
Well, you know what they're doing. They're using COVID to
as an excuse to get. Oh, yeah.
To try to destroy the economy and stop Trump in 2020, November. They don't want this man reelected, so they'll do literally anything to try to burn down the House to prevent this man from being in the White House for another 4 years.
Well, that's why you see the Democratic governors are the first to close down the states and going after Trump. And we have that one over here in New York, the King Cuomo, a little boy born on third base and thought he hit a home run. And nobody, like his brother Chris on CNN, if daddy wasn't Mario, I'm going to rename the Tappan Zee Bridge after my daddy. Yeah, these are dictators. And everybody applauds this guy Cuomo. And what does New York State have? No, but only about 32,000 deaths from the COVID because he took the sick people out of hospitals and put them in nursing homes. So that's where most of your deaths are coming from. And on an average, nationally, some 50% of the people that died from this are elder care homes, nursing homes, people that were chronically ill.
Well, that's absolutely right. And the mainstream mockingbird horror media refuses to tell the American people that. And Cuomo quite literally has blood on his hands because he inflated the numbers by doing exactly what you said. And now these vampires want us to wait for a vaccine from Bill Gates. I'm with you. I would never, ever, and neither would my listeners or your listeners, ever take that damn vaccine.
No. And what they're going to do is you're not vaccinated, then you can't get on an airplane. You're not vaccinated, you can't get your car, your driver's license. They'll make up stuff, just like in New York State. If your kids aren't vaccinated, they can't go to public school. And you can see the dictatorial nature of these people that have taken over. These are against the law. They're against the Constitution, against the Bill of Rights, these executive orders. And there's virtually no blowback.
Show me your papers, please. Did we ever think it would get this bad in this country this fast? Gerald, the last time you and I talked, we were pretty much talking about an economic meltdown, but we didn't think it would necessarily be one engineered on the back of a Event 201 pandemic.
No. And this is unprecedented. And by the way, it's very important to note, this is global. And you have dictators that, let's take a look at Australia. You have a country of 25.5 million people. The deaths are about 106, 110. 110 people out of 25.5 million, and you lock down the joint, and now you're locking down parts of it again? So this is going on globally. It's these power-hungry freaks that are in control. And in America, they will do anything not to get Trump elected, and they're using this as a tool against him. And to me, Trump is playing the wrong card here. He should be blaming the governors that have locked down all these states for destroying the economy, because this thing is going down into the greatest depression. There's no V-shaped recovery, W-shaped recovery. It's not going to be a recovery at all.
Well, compare and contrast these tyrants versus the liberty-loving governors. For instance, Gretchen Whitmer in Michigan, compare her to Kristi Noem in South Dakota. Kristi Noem speaks about liberty. She says, we're open for business. If you want to come here and be free and breathe clean air, our doors are wide open. And what do you get in Michigan with a Democrat tyrant like Gretchen Whitmer? Closing things down again. You got to wear a mask. You got to shelter in place. You got to do what we say because we're the government and we're here to protect you. Nothing could be further from the truth.
Well, I agree with you. We held a rally here in Kingston last week. You go to occupypeace.com and you can see it. I had Judge Napolitano here up from Fox News. And it was a 4th of July Unite for Peace and Restore Freedom rally. You should see the blowback I got because I had a rally on the 4th of July. Black Lives Matter, they could protest every Wednesday and Sunday over here, but not Gerald Celente to have a rally for 4th of July. Of course, I held it anyway, and they didn't do anything to stop me. So when you call her Whitmer, how about witless? And that's all these people are. And how about that gruesome Newsom over there, related to the club in California, a little nobody, nothing of an arrogant boy closing down a state of 40 million people. And how many died there? Oh, about 7,500. 7,500 out of 40 million, that's about 0.018%. And you close down an entire state that's bigger than most nations and one of the most, biggest economies in the world for that. And where's the blowback?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. Why aren't people marching in the streets in these Democrat states? And they were in Michigan. They marched on the Capitol. Yeah, I would just like to say, as it pertains to Gavin Newsom, built by Getty. That's what you get with Newsom. Same thing with all of these Democrats. They're all built by somebody behind the scenes, usually a Soros-related person or Soros himself. So let me share this with you. Take a look at this. Not sure if you can see my screen, but the audience will be able to. Something else the mainstream media won't tell the people. Hydroxychloroquine, the one chart you need to see. We'll click on this. Studies are overwhelmingly positive. So they still want people to shelter in place, be scared to death, and wait for the vaccine. This mainstream media is absolutely the enemy of the people. And that's what our president has been saying, Gerald, and he's absolutely right. 100%.
Well, again, you go back to recent Trends journals, we quote Jeff Zucker from CNN. We could take that Z out and put any other letter in front of it that you'd like. And he's saying to his staff to keep this going because people are tuning in. Their ratings have skyrocketed 120% since they started selling fear. And that's all the media's done. Their ratings were in the toilet where they belong before this happened. And there's a quote right from the Wall Street Journal, him promoting this thing, and all the media is doing the same. Just like they dress up in that hurricane drag. Oh, there's a storm coming. And they have the wind blowing, and they keep putting fear into the people. And the most damaging aspect of this to me is how easily the people follow. And that is the same way they'll Heil Hitler, march to Mussolini, and salute Stalin. And they did the same thing following these little low-life pieces of garbage crap called governors, mayors, prime ministers, chancellors, and other dictators.
It is shocking how many Americans fall in line and are willing to stand in line for hours to get a COVID test. My wife and I talk about this all the time. I'm like, who are these people? Do they literally not have cognitive thinking abilities? Do they literally not have the ability to process information and make their own decisions? Because they're being lied to by the mainstream media, and many of them apparently love it.
Yeah, they look up to them because they look down to themselves. Again, look at the death rates in the United States. Again, half are from elder care homes. So you're going to die anyway. It's not like you're going to, day camp after you get out of an elder care home. Number 2, obesity, type 2 diabetes, lung disorders from smoking, heart disease. America, 42% of Americans are obese. 70% are overweight. The media never talks about getting in good shape, building up your immune system, taking supplements, on and on, so you don't get this.
Right.
So that's why the American rate is so high, because of the shape the American people are in. Did you ever hear that expression, pigs can't fly? Mm-hmm. You've been to the airport lately? Look what the people look like. So that's why they're dying, but nobody talks about this.
Yeah, but Gerald, the other problem, and you know it to be true, is false positives, fudged statistics. In the state of Minnesota, where the Democrat Governor Walz practiced his tyrannical control through the crisis, he turned a $1.8 billion surplus into a $2.3 billion deficit because he closed everything down. And now that governor's considering closing everything down again. Meanwhile, by the health department's own statistics in Minnesota, of the just over 1,400 people who are said to have died from COVID, only around 300 of those people weren't in elderly long-term health care facilities. So the whole thing is a sham. And you want to know what's going to happen next? Well, more of the same. Google will ban ads on sites publishing debunked coronavirus theories. Now, Gerald, what is debunked? What is a debunked coronavirus theory? Well, look no further than this conversation, Gerald. The one we're having would be considered a debunked theory by Google.
Yep. So. Again, it's censorship 2.0. Freedom in America is gone. You're not allowed to question the people that they put on the air. Again, go back to the Iraq War. When Fair and Accuracy Reporting did a research study on it, they showed that the major networks put on people that only supported the war. Like less than 2% or 3% were against it. And that guy, Phil Donahue, they threw him off the air because he was against it. And this is the COVID war. And they're doing the same thing. Again, when you look at why we should trust them, the hypocrisy, the New York Times, the paper, so-called paper of record, I call it the toilet paper of record because that's all it's good for. They just did a report last week showing that some 1,300 epidemiologists and other people in the health industry were supporting all of these protests from Black Lives Matter. But yet they were against the protests, for example, in Michigan and Ohio, of people protesting the lockdown. It's right there. They're quotes from the people that are epidemiologists saying, yes, we support this, and yes, they should keep protesting, but no, you should not protest against this. So they turn the whole thing political, right in front of everybody's eyes that could read and think. But people don't read and think anymore. Again, the same way they marched off to wars, if you're dumb enough to believe the George Bush wars, they're dumb enough to believe the COVID war.
Let me ask you this. Regarding November, what do you make of these polls that suggest that Joe Biden is far and away leading Donald Trump from coast to coast? And if the election was tomorrow, Joe Biden would be president. Now, even Peter Schiff, who was just on the Joe Rogan show, believes that Trump is not going to win in November. I don't personally view that as possible. Joe Biden can't string two sentences together. And he really, when he has a rally or a presentation or a public appearance at all, no one shows up. So what do you make of these polls, Gerald?
They're worth nothing. If you go back to our magazine, the Trends Journal, May 2016, we called Trump a winner. And I'm a political atheist. I mean, I don't take sides on this stuff. And of course, Trump won. The same thing now. I began my career, I used to run political campaigns in Westchester County at a graduate school. I was number 2 guy running the mayoral campaigns in Yonkers, right out of graduate school. That's a city of 300,000 people. I was the assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate and designed and instructed American politics and campaign technology at St. John's University. Have a little experience in this field. You know when the election begins? After Labor Day. Right now, the election's out of most people's minds. When they debate, that's going to be the big clincher of who wins and who loses. Just like it happened with the Kennedy-Nixon debate. That's what the people are going to be waiting for. If Trump is not playing the Trump card right now, as I said, he should be out there blaming the Democrats for closing down the economy. Maybe he's waiting to do it, but that's what he should be doing. So I still believe at this point that it's Trump 2020.
Yeah, there are some effective Trump ads out now. I don't know if you've seen the one where a person calls 911 and they're basically put on hold. They say, we'll get back to you in 5 days. I mean, these people are truly the enemy. Look, the mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, Washington Post, which is Bezos' blog, the New York Times, ABC News, CBS News, NBC News. They are literally the enemy of humanity and the American people because they will not tell the truth. And that's our job. I just did a video recently called The Big Club. So we'll talk about Ghislaine Maxwell in a second. But let me ask you this, getting back to my little game here. DNC or Soros? Who's worse for this country?
Boy, that's a toss-up.
Right.
It's a toss-up.
They're one and the same at this point.
I have to be honest with you. To me, both political parties, we need a whole new system here. It's going nowhere other than down. And, it's time for a real radical change. I mean, Nancy Pelosi, Chucky Schumer, Lindsey Graham, Mitch McConnell. I mean, oh, my God. Can we step it up?
Yeah. Well, and look at the wealth of these people. I think I read something the other day that said Nancy Pelosi's worth $100 million. These people get into government, they stay in government, they get bought and paid for, they sell out the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, and the American people, and they get richly awarded for it, and nobody goes to jail. See, that's my ultimate outrage, Gerald. We want to drain this swamp. Where are the high-level arrests of deep state criminals? I really think they are coming. I think this Durham investigation might actually net some indictments of deep state traitors. But God, I'm telling you, Gerald, until that happens, I am just trying to be cautiously optimistic.
Number 2, big to jail. I mean,
yeah, too big to fail, too big to jail.
They go after we, the little people, for any little infraction that we do, and the banksters and the big crooks get away with murder. And it just keeps going on like that. So again, we need a radical change. We need a third party here of real substance to change the direction or else I just see this going down further and further.
I'll tell you this, there's one glimmer of hope that I can point to directly. It's this one, the arrest of Ghislaine Maxwell. The point I made in that microdoc I just released the other day called The Big Club, Gerald, and of course that is a reference to George Carlin, who said, it's a big club and you and I ain't in it. We are not in the big club. Well, what was the big club? What is it? I couldn't have imagined how vast and connected to evil, pure evil, the big club is. They deal in children, Gerald. And Ghislaine Maxwell is one of them, and she's been arrested. So that is good news.
Yeah, but we have to see what happens with it and where they go with it, and how long will she be alive? You know, that guy hung himself. You know, right in front of everybody's eyes. And if you say, like, "Come on, what do you mean this guy hung himself?" Oh, you're a conspiracy theorist. You know, so we have to see what goes on with this, and with the murderers in charge. It's very iffy of what's going to really come out as I see it with it.
One thing I do believe to be true, just my view, just a hunch, is that if the white hats, the people that arrested Ghislaine, which were essentially the New York Police Department Special Victims Unit, the Child Victims Unit, and the FBI, if they weren't serious about arresting her and getting her to talk, she would have been whacked before being arrested. You know what I mean? I just don't think that, I think she holds the keys to the kingdom, to the castle, and she can bring down a lot of people, maybe even Hillary Clinton. It's said that she has video of 2 U.S. politicians engaged in acts with children, Gerald. So if that stuff comes to light, it's game over for these people.
Yeah, that'd be, game should have been over a long time ago.
All right, let me ask you this. Getting back to your latest Trends Journal, politicians, COVID war equals poverty and crime. What did you make of what was going on in Seattle with that autonomous zone, Chaz? And what do you make of the move by these criminal Democrats to literally want to defund police? In Minneapolis, the city council or whatever just voted to defund the entire police department. And evidently what they want is rule by Antifa and BLM in the streets, because if they defund the police, if they disband the police, if they take all that money and just put it into social programs, you know what we're going to get, Gerald.
Oh, it's ridiculous what they're doing. It makes absolutely no sense. But look at who they are. These are senseless people. Tell me anything that you know about that the government's done so well. And show me the country, the state, the city. And these are losers. Again, I was assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate. I was there firsthand. These are the people you hated in high school and college that wanted to be class president and head of the student council and haven't grown up, and they're still in high school. So they're doing this moronic stuff without any knowledge of what they're doing. And we're going to see, again, this is going to be the divided states of America. We're going to see crime go through the roof. As I say, when people lose everything and have nothing left to lose, they lose it. And you look at the crime statistics already in major cities, Minneapolis included, going higher and higher and higher, and this is only the beginning. Oh, by the way, very interesting. Gun control isn't an issue anymore, is it? Now, what is it? The feds came out and said that licensing for new guns is up like about 160% from last year. So it's not going to be an issue anymore. It's going to be the people against the criminals.
All right. Well, final question here for you, getting back to my little game. So you and I both know the economy is not in a great place, and with $26 trillion in stated national debt, gold or silver, Gerald?
Well, I don't give financial advice, but I'll give you my forecasts. First of all, we're going to go into the greatest depression. There's not going to be a bounce back here. It's going to be devastating. And it's going to go on for years. And history is repeating itself. Go back to the 1930s. What'd you have? Currency wars, trade wars, depression, world war. You got currency wars, trade wars. We're going into the greatest depression, world war. So what we see happening here is gold and silver, as I see it, silver is going to spike much higher percentage rate than gold. You go back to our Trends Journal on June 6, 2019, a little over a year ago. The headline was, Gold bull run. It has begun. Gold was at $1,332 an ounce. And I said, once it breaks over 1450, and I believe it would, that's why I wrote that article, that it's going to spike to a 2000, and we're not far away from that. When gold spikes to 2000, you're going to see silver be the big winner after that. Gold's going to keep going up, and silver's going to keep following. The interesting thing about silver is there's no silver deposits. You use them in your cell phone and in keyboards and computers, and they go into the dump. So there's no stockpiles of silver. And so there's going to be strong demand for it. And also, when you look globally, you have all these central banks that are pumping up their economies with all this digital trash backed by nothing and printed on nothing. So you're going to have more and more people in more and more countries going for gold and silver because their currencies aren't going to be worth anything.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And guys, for those listening who missed it, on Thursday I posted a video, an interview with my friend James Anderson over at SD Bullion called "If There's One Silver Interview You Watch This Year, It Should Be This One." Go watch that, because James aptly breaks down the price suppression schemes of J.P. Morgan and how that whole thing is falling apart. The U.S. Justice Department calling J.P. Morgan's precious metals trading desk a criminal enterprise and going after them under RICO statutes. It's a very big story, guys. Silver at 19 really is the most undervalued tangible asset on earth. In my view, that's not investment advice, but it is my view. Gerald, I want to thank you very much for all you do and your time today. Do you want to tell people about the website and how they can get a subscription to Trends Journal?
Sure. Trendsjournal.com, trendsjournal.com. It's the only magazine that tells you what's going on, what it means, and what's next. And people really need to prepare for what's next. Matter of fact, we have Brad Steiner, one of America's top close combat and survivalist guys. And my teacher was his teacher. In close combat for many years. So what we're doing, not only helping the people prepare financially, but help them prepare for what's coming down the line, because you better be in the best shape you can to survive what's going to be next. So that's what the Trends Journal is. And again, it's and I'm not bragging. I'm just saying to you, if anybody could show me a magazine that could come close to it, please do. Because there's nothing like this in the world. And it's an international magazine. So we cover from, again, health to fitness to survival to where's silver and gold going and who's going to win the next election.
All right, very good. Guys, it's trendsresearch.com. Our guest has been Gerald Celente. Gerald, we got to do this more often. Sorry it's been so long, but I really am glad to have you back. Thank you.
Well, I've been following you for years, and I'm glad to be back on. Thank you for all that you do.
Oh, thank you, and back at you. I've been following you for years, too, and we'll stay in touch. Guys, I want to thank you so much for tuning in, and for real news, I'll remind you guys, go straight to sgtreport.com, will you? My latest 3 videos are always at the very top. That's the antidote to corporate propaganda and mockingbird mainstream media lies, sgtreport.com, and of course, trendsresearch.com is where you will find Gerald Celente. Guys, thanks so much for tuning in. God bless. Bye-bye.
By 2030, you could have $500 silver because the monetary system is going to be changing, and people are not going to accept fiat Federal Reserve notes in the form that they're in at this point. So essentially, you're going to have silver have an exponential price rise.